Welcome. Colin Crandall here, your MMA professor with the most brilliant man in MMA, Mr. Callum Sanderson. What a show we have in store for you here today. Got the great background set up, my beautiful fantasy home. Maybe real, is it, or is it not? Probably not. Nevertheless, it's going to be a great show here. We're going to talk about UFC 296 and a couple of brief thoughts about the upcoming events, whatever they may be in the new year. Callum, UFC 296, a very interesting card. And what the hell? Someone's calling me right in the middle of our show. Let me turn off Mission Impossible. Bloody hell, mate, as you guys would say. Nevertheless, interesting card. A main event was, of course, Leon Edwards, the champion, against Colby Covington. I'll throw this out there, then I'll throw it to you. To use the coin the phrase of the great British rock and roll star Joe Cocker, it was a bit of a Mad Dogs versus Englishmen matchup for a couple of these fights. Tony against Patty, and then Leon against Colby, with the Englishman coming out 2-0. Fair played, lads. To you. What's your thoughts?
Over the moon. Especially the Leon fight, which obviously we'll go into detail in more detail. The Paddy one, mixed feelings. I'm not Paddy's biggest fan, but I'm also not his biggest hater either. He's a Liverpool fan like myself, so I will have a soft spot for Paddy Pimblett. But I've always been a massive Tony Ferguson fan as well. So seeing his sort of decline and seeing how he got beat by Paddy, that was quite hard to watch. Not in the sense of him, like he lost the fight convincingly. I wouldn't say it was like an absolute destruction as such, but just knowing what he used to be and know what he is now, it's hard to see and watch Tony Ferguson the way he is. So bittersweet on that one, but extremely sweet with watching Leon Rocky Edwards get the victory against Colby Covington.
Absolutely. They should have been yelling Rocky.
Yeah.
Probably in England they probably would have, but
Yeah.
then they would have been yelling Ole over there, right? I don't know if that'll ever catch on in the United States. What do you think? Perhaps not.
I think it's because you guys have so many sports over there. You've got basketball, you've got hockey, you've got baseball, you've got NFL, football. You've got so many different sports.
Soccer, right.
With us in the UK, it's predominantly football. And
soccer,
then
European football,
and then boxing. But MMA's really had a rise in the last few years. So I'd say those are the three main sports. We still obviously have cricket and a few others, but a lot of the tribalism in terms of fanfare comes from the football world, because we as football fans are very tribalistic and we're very loud and boisterous at games. I think that's translated over to boxing, hence why a lot of boxers will say, a lot of the English fans, they're very animated and very loud, and the atmosphere is usually good because it's usually taken from that world of football.
Absolutely. Now, when you say cricket, are people in England still saying that's just not cricket? Or is that something from like 50 years ago?
No, you'll hear it once in a blue moon.
And what does that mean? Not good or something
I
like that?
I have no idea.
Because that is more of an old saying.
Yeah.
It's just not cricket, actually.
Yeah.
Anyway, but in watching the game, it is cricket, so that's always a good thing. Anyway, let's jump into this. And the undercard, Shamil Gadziev looked amazing, beating Martin Boudet. Andre Touchy-Feely with a great win. He really needed that to get back on track. Congrats to Andre Feely, right? Tagir Ulanbekov looked good against Cody Durden with the face crank. Those are very, very painful. Can make you feel like your jaw's going to break and your sinus cavities being crushed. Definitely is a good one. You got another right grip, too, and you get your hand right there down the parallel with your rhomboid inside your shoulder blade, and you just make sure you gable grip it, and that can be extremely painful if you have that right and just start turning it. And then you have Ariane Lipski, my opinion, the most beautiful looking girl in MMA, most beautiful in MMA. Yes,
Mackenzie Dern.
Mackenzie's good. I like Mackenzie, and then but to me, Ariane Lipski is it. She's amazing, and she looked great. 3 wins in a row.
Yeah.
Very humble, nice, sweet person, beautiful looking girl. So good on you for, as the Aussies would say, to Ariane Lipski. Cody Garbrandt getting a much-needed win against Brian Kelleher. Kelleher looked a little bit outsized in that one. Had a feeling it might go that way, but Kelleher's so durable. But Garbrandt, it's weird how Garbrandt gets the win over Kelleher, and so he has won two fights in a row,
Yeah.
but he's only 2-2 in his last four. Yet the person interviews him says, "Oh, now you're right back on things. You're right back at the top, essentially." Or
Yeah.
whatever.
It's crazy. It's the first time he's been on a winning streak, if I'm not mistaken,
Right.
since he won the belt.
Right, so he's hardly back on the top
Yeah.
by any means, but it's a good, good, as you guys again say, fair played to
Yeah.
Mr. Cody
No love.
Garbrandt. Yep, and no love, exactly. And then we have, let's getting back to where we were, and then after that, but yeah, Lipsky looking very good against Casey O'Neill, who I think was representing Scotland, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yep, Irvine, Scotland. Yep, yep. And she's probably saying, I was going to put it on her in round 3, but she didn't give me a chance to do it. Horrible Scottish accent.
Yeah, we got to work on that one.
Cal, that was bad. Callum's heard me do it well, but
yeah, you've done it better than that. We've got to work on that one.
Yes, that one. Yeah, that was this bad, spontaneous Scottish accent. But to subscribe to Callum here, they're like always going to subscribe. Good. Anyway, Alonzo Menafield came in there, man. He came in there looking wild. I've never seen his hair that way. I've actually never seen anyone's hair that way. It looked like it was coming up in a triangle and then a square on top. And got to be the new style. We got to call that the Menafield style. And so he came in there sporting the Menafield. Maybe that was the answer. There used to be a television commercial advertisement, as you guys would call here, that would have people doing some amazing things, and they would say it's got to be the hair, and then they would do the advert for the sales, the hair salon, barbershop, right? So that may have been it, the power in that great style for Menafield. That was a very close fight, though. Some thought that it could have gone to Dustin Jacoby, but very close fight, and Menafield did look good. Good win. Josh Emmett, my man, came back and against Bryce Mitchell. That was an interesting matchup.
Yeah,
I think many of us knew that Josh did have a good chance there, but he had just been not winning. But he was not winning against the very best out there. What did you think going into that one? I think like I did, we felt Josh did have a fair shot there, but it just seemed like the trajectory of their careers were going the opposite way. And what do you think?
Yeah, it was a weird one. Again, big Bryce Mitchell fan. I went into it thinking it's a tough ask for him on short notice. I think Emmett's not one of these guys you can just go in there and think you're going to beat. I think you've got to prepare for properly. And when I saw them both at the weigh-in, I was like, I know they both made 145 pounds, but Emmett just looked double the size of him. I actually don't know how Emmett makes the weight. Like
these American wrestlers, man, they just grew up doing that. It's like clockwork almost.
He's just so big, like he's massive.
Yeah.
And then you look at Bryce, and it's not like Bryce is really cut or anything. So for me, he looks like a guy who could maybe go down a weight division. He's kind of walking around similar to the way he's fighting. So I saw that and I was like, right, no real training camp for this fight. Going up against Emmett, who's got a point to prove with knockout power, unless Bryce gets this to the ground early and is able to subdue him, it's gonna be rough. And the knockout itself, I mean, it's not the most devastating knockout we see. It was a very devastating knockout, but not the most devastating knockout we've seen. We've seen others like Leon's head kick, Edson Barboza against
Terry
Edson,
right? Yeah.
But the after effect where Bryce is sort of on the floor and he's shaking, and that was, I mean, the UFC cameraman did a great job because they didn't stay on Bryce. They went to Josh Emmett, which I think was very classy because obviously Bryce's family and friends are going to be watching that on TV. The last thing they want to see is that. But that was hard. That was hard to watch, man. And thank God Bryce is okay. He did a message on his Instagram saying that he's all good. So congratulations to Emmett. Emmett, again, classy as anything handling that, because he could have been running around the octagon and celebrating. The moment he saw Bryce was in a little bit of discomfort and problem, he completely changed his whole tone. And even in the post-fight, he was saying how they both have dreams, and he's happy for Bryce that he's making a living, doesn't want any long-term damage to him. So Emmett again seems like a great guy, got a great win, and it'll be interesting to see who his matchmate with next and going forward for both men,
Yeah,
actually.
yes, indeed, absolutely would. And Josh is a very nice guy. I think I've interviewed him 7 or 8 times over the last several years. And
Mm.
speaking of which, for those of you watching, we are going to make some effort to get some fighters on the show in the new year. I'm going to make a supreme effort, perhaps even Josh Emmett.
Oh, that'd be
So,
brilliant.
yep. So let's look out. Let's look out for that. And it would be great to chat with him again. He's a very good guy. Very happy for him. Then we have Paddy the Baddy. Man, it's too bad that Paddy can't connect with one of the Beatles from Liverpool, John
Yeah.
or Ringo. Can you imagine, like, if they would endorse him, or that would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That's like his grandparents' music.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah, but that would be brilliant because Liverpool, they got that Liverpool thing going, and but yeah, Paddy the Baddy. He tell me if I'm wrong, but he looked a bit more muscular than I've ever seen. His shoulders were popping out. I
Yeah.
almost wondered if not to cast any aspersions, but I almost wondered if USADA, who apparently is no longer connected to the UFC, I'm wondering, are they not testing or? I don't know, but no, I'm not trying to say anything against Paddy,
Yeah.
but his shoulders were popping out. I've never seen that before. He
I
looked like
said
he
that.
was, yeah,
I said that as soon as I saw him come to the octagon, he took off his top. I was like, he's had a full body transformation here. Like, but I think he said he's just been way stricter with his diet and his conditioning. I think the Jared Gordon fight and his layoff is probably the best thing that probably could happen to Paddy Pimblett.
yeah.
He
It
was on
looks
this
like it.
trajectory, and he almost got to a point where he almost became he almost thought he was better than what he was, and no one could tell him anything. That Jared Gordon fight was very humbling. I think the post fight and the lead up to the fight, and then the injury, I think that's changed his whole mentality, and I think you could see it in his physique. I think you could see it in the way he approached the fight as well. He wasn't standing there just trying to trade, and it was for me the most mature performance I've seen of Paddy Pimblett since he's been in the UFC. Again, he's not going up against great competition. Name value, Tony Ferguson has probably the biggest name or one of the biggest names in the lightweight division, but he's not that same fighter. But Paddy was extremely surgical in his approach and very mature and got a dominant win. I think the first round should have been a 10-8 personally, but he easily won the second two.
Yeah, he did. He really looked good. He's eating more of the more healthy scran over there, right?
Yeah,
And they can stop eating pizza all the time as he used
yeah,
to do at the press conferences. This is the first time I don't think he was eating at the press conference.
yeah.
In
He
fact, he
wasn't.
wasn't. So good, fair play to Paddy the Baddy. Looked very, very
Mhm.
good. And Tony, who knows where Tony goes from here? This is now 7 losses in a row. I think people had felt that Paddy kind of had paled in comparison to the people that Tony had been losing to.
Mm.
And either Paddy's better than the people felt who made that statement, or Tony's faded even more, and so it's so hard to say, but it just seems like Tony didn't have much for Paddy. He just didn't. And whereas I think if Tony could go back in time 7 years, 6 years before the Gaethje fight, probably it would have been a different story. But still,
Yeah.
definitely good performance by Paddy indeed. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Shavkat Rachmanov. I always hate when someone taps out when there's 4 seconds left to the bell, but I shouldn't. Let me qualify that. There's no disrespect to anyone, because if you're being choked unconscious, it's not a good feeling.
Yeah.
I've been caught in many chokeholds, and I've actually tried to fight through a lot of them. And but being that other than a couple of small tournaments, I only was mostly competing in the school where I was training, and there wasn't much to prove there. And so I never went out. I always, if it was getting that close, I would tap out. So I don't know what it feels. Not a pleasant feeling though, and I know it's kind of a panicking feeling when you can't breathe. So no shade on Wonder Boy, but it looked like he was lowering his chin and he was somewhat blocking it, but I guess he wasn't. And not only that, he's fighting in his 40s now, and the older you get, the more you can, your neck and your back, I think, can be damaged a bit earlier. At least that's been my experience. And he probably just felt that he didn't want to go out, and it may have been damaging his neck as well. And but man, he was doing pretty darn good. in that fight. But Shavkat, once again, he does not let people go the distance with him. Has anyone gone to the third with Shavkat? I think Jeff
Yeah,
Neal
Jeff
did. Let me
Neal did.
take a
Yeah,
look. Yeah, but and that is it. Everyone else out in the first or the second.
it's
So
crazy.
not only is Stephen Thompson the 18th out of 18 opponents to be stopped, but he is now the 17th out of 18 opponents to not even make it to the third round with Shavkat. So, well done to Shavkat, and Thompson. I think did a bit better than people thought, going nearly to the third. He would have joined an elite crowd with Jeff Neal had he just made it a few more seconds. But nevertheless, yeah, I mean, at 170. We have Bilal, we have Shavkat, Ian Gary is there, Vicente Luque, the two of them were going to fight. Gilbert Burns. Um,
Can we still say Hamza, or do you think that's completely?
I don't think so. They're saying that he can't make it anymore. Although how Shavkat makes it, I don't know. And not only that, but I think if they were going to make Hamzat fight Shavkat for big money, although I wonder, they're not friends. Shavkat's from Kazakhstan, Hamzat's from Chechnya, growing up in Sweden. So I wouldn't be surprised if they don't know each other at all, or if so, barely.
I'll be honest. That's the fight I want to see, Colin. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, that would be a really good fight.
That's the fight. I would pay, like, if I was the UFC and you want to try and convince Hamzat to go to 170, I think you do that. I think you say, look, 2 more fights at 70. You beat Shavkat, you're next for the title shot at 70, and then you can go straight up to 185 and fight for the belt as well.
That would be great. Now, if you could be there wherever in the world they had that fight in the cage side with a free ticket, would you give up fish and chips for the entire year of 2024 if the fight was going to be at the end of the year next year?
At the end of the year, do you know what? For that one, I would.
Okay.
But by the moment the clock strikes midnight,
you're gonna have some fish and chips. And there went Callum. Callum was gone. That fish and chips chat knocked out his connection. I think the connection in England was so upset to Callum.
I would, but the year it's the as soon as the clock strikes midnight on the 1st of January 2025, I'll be grabbing myself some fish and chips.
Absolutely. So I was gonna say, how can an Englishman not have fish and chips for a whole year? That would be a record. It would have to be. Although, do you ever meet anyone over there that says they don't like fish and chips? Perhaps someone.
I actually
nobody.
No. I know it sounds really stereotypical, but no, I actually don't know anyone who doesn't.
I love it. That makes sense. I even like fish and chips, and I'm American. But yeah, that would be a great fight. Now, the question is this. Bilal did have that brief fight with Leon before. I think it was an eye poke where Leon was winning. Now, since then, to give Bilal credit, he seems to have made even more improvements since then. But I would say Leon probably has as well. Here's what I think. I like Bilal. Bilal's the American. I'm going to be patriotic. So I'm fine with Bilal getting that shot, but I feel there's more anticipation seeing Shavkat against Leon than Bilal. Would you agree with me there?
I absolutely agree with that. But what I will say is, so again, I'm a massive Leon Edwards fan, but I wasn't too keen on how dismissive Edwards was after the Bilal fight, and then since then. And the reason I say that is, he beat Bilal in the first round and he was beating him in the second round. But how many fights have we seen where one fighter wins the first 2 rounds and loses the last 3 rounds? We saw it with Francis Ngannou versus Cyril Gane. So just because you won the first 2 rounds, you can't sit there for me and say, well, I was winning the fight and so it is what it is. Because you could still lose the fight even though you win the first 2. You can win the first 4 rounds and 50 seconds and you could get stopped in the last 10 seconds of the 5th round, you still lose the fight. So on that basis, I actually think Bilal should have been the title challenger last night or at 296. I don't think it should have been Colby. I think that should have been Bilal's title shot. I think it would be really disingenuous and a really bad look for the sporting integrity of mixed martial arts if Bilal isn't the next title challenger at 170. I think the Shavkat fight is there for whoever wins that fight between Leon and Bilal, but I think Bilal absolutely deserves it. I don't even know the number of wins he's on at the moment, but he's on a high winning streak. He's beaten Vicente Luque. He just beat Gilbert Burns in his last fight. I mean, Colby, from what I hear, never took the Bilal fight. I didn't want the Bilal fight. So, I mean, Usman's had 2 tries at Edwards. He's lost both. Colby just had a try at Edwards. Gilbert's coming off the back of a loss. It's got to be Bilal. It has to be Bilal next.
Yeah, I think so. Although, like I said, I'm more excited about Shavkat. I actually think Shavkat got a better chance. The interesting thing is that Leon is such a fighter for the new generation. But anyway, why don't we get back to that? I just realized we skipped through. So Shavkat is definitely looking primed to get some big things done. And then we go to the co-main event, Alexandre Pantoja against Brandon Royval, the American. I'm cheering USA. I've interviewed Brandon Royval. He's a really good dude. I love his camp, which was Factory X, and I hate seeing them go 0-2 like they did last night. The Dustin Jacoby, once again, though, could have been a victory for Jacoby. That was quite close, but certainly not the Royval fight. But Royval gave it a hell of a shot. He's taller and lankier, and a lot of these taller, lanky guys win fights, but then some of them are starting not to win fights. You can see Pantoja looked like the stronger, sturdier, more muscular guy. Even though he was a few inches shorter, he still looks like he also may have been a bit heavier, even though sometimes when you're shorter, it gives that appearance. But just the wrestling of the Brazilian was great, and the Brazilians aren't growing up in a real wrestling culture like us Americans, although Brandon Royval also was not part of the wrestling culture growing up, although he has some pretty good wrestling. He gave it a really good shot. He really did. Just those takedowns. I think what Pantoja did to Royval is what Colby Covington needed to try to do to Leon. And really didn't even come close to that. But we'll talk on that in a minute. But Pantoja is tough. I think really probably bringing Brandon Moreno. I thought Moreno beat him in that fight about 6 months ago.
Did you?
I did.
I had it 3-2 Pantoja, but I wouldn't have been mad if it went the other way.
Yeah, I wasn't mad either because I felt it was very close. But I was mad because I wanted Brandon to win. He's a really good guy. I've interviewed him after fights a few times, but I wasn't like outraged or saying it was a ripoff. But I think that's the fight again, and I think Moreno beats him in that rematch. But Pantoja's an impressive guy. The one thing though is at what is he, 35 or something? 30, 33, no 33, which still for a flyweight is like 35 at a welterweight. So at some point he's going to slow down a little bit. A lot of miles on him, but he's on a good streak here. Has not lost in well over 2 years. 5-0 is his last 5 fights. Looked pretty good. Royval gave it a hell of a shot, but definitely impressive performance in my opinion of Pantoja. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely echo what you say. He's an absolute animal. He's yin and yang. Outside the cage, calm, respectful, really cool. Inside the cage, he's an absolute monster. He really is. And this is one of those rare fights where you can sit there and you go, Royval didn't do much wrong in the fight. He actually fought really well, in my opinion. Pantoja just showed he's on a different level. And I don't think Royval, as much as he's going to be disappointed, hurt, and upset, he shouldn't be down on himself because he didn't do much wrong. He just fought someone better than him. Now, Pantoja, he's making a real claim for someone who could dominate this division for a few years. Because apart from Brandon Moreno, I don't see anyone else being able to keep that pace with him. Like Moreno's the only one we've seen it. I think he walked through Kai Kara France potentially. I think he walked through Al-Bazani. Like, he's that good. He didn't do anything wrong last night. He was so good. He knows when to take a breather in there. He knows when to push the pace. He knows when to wrestle. He knows when to strike. He's just good everywhere. His jiu-jitsu is excellent. His ground game's top. Yeah, he is a phenomenal fighter. Really I think because he's not loud and brash, I think he goes under the radar. In terms of pound for pound list, he should be up there because there's not many people beating him in and around his weight.
That's true. Is Mohammed Mokaev a flyweight or bantamweight?
He is indeed.
That may be the fight. He's only like 24 years old now, or just turned that.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
what would you think, as a fellow Englishman here with Mokaev? Should they give him 2 or 3 more fights, or one, or if somehow he could be next? Is he ready for
So
Pantoja?
Makayev, I'm looking at the rankings now. Makayev's currently ranked number 8. So I reckon Albazi and Moreno, who are fighting next, I think whoever wins that fight will get the next shot. If that's the case, I'd like to see Makayev versus Nicolau, and then I'd like to see Manuel Karp and Kai Kara France fight, because there's that beef there. If Makayev beats Nicolau and the winner of Kai Kara France and Manuel Cape, then I think those two should potentially have a fight, and then the winner gets Pantoja.
That makes sense.
I think you might be right. I think Makayev may be 2 fights away.
Is Kara France the Aussie or a New Zealander?
New Zealand. I think it's going to be very hard for Makayev to be matched up, though. I don't think a lot of people are going to want to accept that fight.
No, exactly.
So
what would you? I think a Kai Kara France Mokaev fight would be interesting. The Brit against the New Zealander.
Yeah,
Do you guys have any rivalry with them or anything?
No, only in the rugby, I'd say. But I don't follow rugby close enough to speak on it in too much detail. But I do think Kai Kara France and Manuel Karp, I think that's the fight to make, because there is genuine beef there, and I think that would be a really good stand-up fight as well.
I agree. So it's possible maybe this time next year on the holiday season, if things go well, we could be seeing Mokaev maybe challenging for the title.
To see that.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Especially they could have that in England, although I'm pretty sure.
Oh.
But I'm pretty sure Pantoja or whoever's holding the belt at that point probably wouldn't want to indulge that.
Yeah.
Although you never know.
Yeah.
Is there, at sporting events, back onto this silliness for a minute, are there fish and chips vendors at sporting events in England, or is
no? Really? It's usually like burger and chips, or like hot dogs and things like that.
Interesting. What don't you think? Would that work? I mean, people love fish and chips there. Is it going to be too messy, or what?
Yeah, I think it's too messy because of the size of the cod usually, unless they do like cod bites. That could
there we go.
Work.
I like that idea.
That could work potentially.
Because some people don't want to have burgers and hot dogs, or they're too much for their stomach, or the older sports fans can't really necessarily eat this smoked meat like that. I think, I really think like someone, could, really do something by being the first at a major sporting event to have fish and chips in England in the smaller amounts. Yeah, hopefully it'll be soon. Perhaps Callum will be the one to do that. It would be fantastic. I love it. They could call it the Sanderson Sports Fish treat. I love that. It'd be fantastic. Callum, on to the main event. Leon Rocky Edwards. It's interesting when they were doing the commentary.
Sorry, Colin. Give me 1 minute.
Sure,
sorry.
For sure. Sorry. No problem. Anyway, so as Callum is doing that, I'm gonna stop sniffling here. Damn bloody allergy season here. Anyway, look, hey, I'm actually going a few seconds without sniffling, and man, I got to get over that. I think stress also, since losing my wife, I wasn't really sniffling on these broadcasts before that, but a bit of stress and a bit of allergy season here. But nonetheless, we're about to speak of that matchup, the Mad Dog versus Englishman matchup of Colby Covington and Leon Edwards. And so we're going to get Callum's thoughts, and then we'll have a few thoughts about what's coming up next year, and we'll go from there. That is if we are still recording. I think we are. I think when Callum stepped aside, that I am taking it from here, unless he stopped the recording. I don't know if you can. Now, Callum, let me ask you: is all the stuff I was saying on? I would imagine it was, or did you?
Yeah. All good.
All right.
Yeah.
So good. Okay. So one of the things that was interesting, if you notice, when they were bringing Leon in, when he did his cage entrance, the commentators, American commentators in the UFC, were saying, Leon is such a friendly, nice guy, and but he's and the other thing also is that you guys in England may or may not know that a lot of Americans, because of your accent being the King's English there, we always look at you guys as kind of upper class, even if it is someone from the lowest of lower class in England, but because the accent, you guys sound like professional, like first class. But someone was saying that don't let Leon's image of this friendly guy with this nice accent belie the fact that he is a really tough guy. that in Birmingham it's a tough place to live a lot, and they said this is a guy who you don't want to meet in the streets. And is that true? Because he seems like such a nice guy, really well spoken, easygoing guy, that great British accent. So you don't expect that this is a guy who he and his friends were really tough guys from the streets, but apparently they were. Is that right? Callum. And there goes Callum. And we lost Callum. And here I am again, your fight professor, arigato, thanking you in Japanese. I don't know why. I thought Callum, I was wondering why Callum's face wasn't moving at all. And I was thinking, am I saying something that he doesn't like? I don't know. But it was a question about that Leon and those guys are really, truly, really tough guys. And I think a lot of times, because of that proper English accent, a lot of times you think these are guys like, who were never thought about being out there in a street fight. But apparently the team in Birmingham are truly, really hard, tough guys. And it makes sense. They work hard, and the way Leon fights, he's just a killer in there. And but we will find out from Callum Sanderson. But as of now, Callum disappeared. So where shall we go with this? There we go. I had to improvise that. No problem. so apparently, I think that's what they were saying, is that Leon and the guys there in Birmingham really did come up tough and were really out there, having to fight for survival in Birmingham. And despite the great British accent and his very friendly professional demeanor, he's truly a tough guy, kind of growing up having to fight for survival in the streets, right?
Yeah, so one thing I don't think that gets translated very well is the sort of toughness of some of the people in some of the areas in the UK. So I grew up in quite a rough part of South London, and it's rough where I grew up. Leon again grew up in a very rough part of Birmingham, and he's not a pushover. Like the thing that happened with Masvidal, like Masvidal had to get out of the country very quickly. Like Masvidal, we know he's about that life. So, and Leon is as well. So when obviously Colby said what he said about his dad in the press conference, if Colby had said that, like, and there weren't security around, the fight wouldn't have happened.
Right.
And like
right.
Leon's lot that he's around as well, they would have got to Colby and his people, because it would have just been seen as the ultimate disrespect. And I think because we see a lot of Americans sort of living in rough areas and growing up rough, and you get some really tough, gritty Americans. I think there's that narrative that all English people are kind of nice and chill and relaxed. There are some areas in England you don't want to go to and start trouble, because you won't make it out.
Yeah.
And Leon's one of the testament of that. And he genuinely is a tough guy. Just because he's got a quiet demeanor, he is a guy who's really about that life, and he will fight until he has to. And I think even when Colby says things like, "Oh, obviously Leon's now got the whole trademark of the headshot dead thing and stuff like that," and he's like, there's no guns in the UK. There are guns in the UK, not legally, but I mean,
right.
there are guns. So just because one country is legalized in some states and the other is not, doesn't mean it doesn't happen here. And unfortunately, Leon was a part of that gang culture until he found MMA, and look what it's done for him. Look what he's done for his brother as well. So I get Colby just continued to step over the line with this one, man. And I don't like Colby Covington in the sense of what he's doing. I do kind of hope he sits back and looks at this and thinks, I don't need to do this, because it's very mixed messaging from him. On one side, he's saying respect for the troops and the first responders and all that stuff's brilliant.
Yeah.
But you can't do all of that and then do the other side of stuff.
Yeah. Oh, there goes Callum again, and your fight professor is here coming after you. Let's do a little bit of boxing here. Little Muay Thai elbow, protecting. Make sure to protect. Another Muay Thai elbow.
Yeah. My laptop's on one at the moment, but yeah, I was saying it doesn't make sense what he's doing anymore. And we spoke about this off camera in the sense of when he was about to get cut, and he cut the promo in Brazil, and then wanted to get a bit more traction, so he got his title shot. if he had stopped doing his old thing then, but I don't think it's a character anymore. I think this is him just projecting who he is, and I think maybe that's the bigger issue.
Yeah, it could very well be. It's not a good thing because if it's an act, then it's one thing, but then going over the line, yeah, it's weird because he has a reputation of being very nice to people when they approach him, but then saying these terrible things. Meanwhile, saying support the troops and the people, and so it is quite odd. It just but that performance, I think I was mentioning to a friend of mine earlier that these fighters in their mid 30s, unlike Patty, who's still in his 20s, and where you take time off in your 20s, it can actually benefit you. But these fighters in their mid 30s who are taking like a year and a half or 2 years off, 85% of the time it doesn't go well. And Colby did not look his best. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Leon. Leon helped Colby to not look his best by being as great a fighter as he is. But it's just there perhaps was some rust. It's what's weird is that Leon is a fighter for the new generation. This is the fighter that was always what was in the minds of us fight fans way back in 1993 when the first UFC came out. And again, Kellum is gone, and so here I am. And this is the old fight professor here. What's happening? What's up, everybody? And there's the great Callum Sanderson back. Callum. So what we had in mind back in 1993 was, I wonder if there will ever be a day where there would be a guy who's wrestling, striking, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, everything was really, really good. John Jones, I think, gave us kind of a taste of that. The thing that I think became apparent with John Jones is that he had such a physical advantage, cutting a lot of weight and being really tall. His jiu-jitsu was good, but it was never really tested by another really great jiu-jitsu guy. Or if when it was because that jiu-jitsu guy had like no striking. His striking was really unorthodox and good, but he was a tall, thin guy, so he didn't really have tremendous power. And then his wrestling was good, and it was great for MMA, although he didn't really have a tremendous wrestling pedigree. Leon, I think, is in a way John Jones 2.0. Leon's striking is just flat out good. He's a good striker. His wrestling is very good. He's nearly as good as a high level American collegiate wrestler, especially within the guidelines of MMA, wrestling for MMA. Very, very good, way up there. And we don't see his jiu-jitsu much, but I think it's quite good as well.
Yeah, it is.
Right. So Leon is this balanced fighter for the rest of eternity, I think, and it's going to be hard to beat a guy like that if you are not that. Colby has decent striking, very good wrestling, and some jiu-jitsu. Colby's only path to victory there was just to continue to take Leon down and either hold him down and do some damage, or rinse and repeat and continue to take him down. We're not seeing that much anymore as the years go by. Another friend of mine mentioned you're just not seeing that much. It's happening when you have some of the very best wrestlers out there. DC was able to do that to people.
Yeah.
Bo Nickel,
DC had really good striking as well.
That he did too. That allowed it, right? So, and then Bilal, I think, is that guy to a good extent, although Leon is like 4 inches taller, 3 inches at least taller than Bilal, maybe even 4 inches. And Bilal also is getting slightly older himself. And so it appears to me that the only other person at 170, I mean, maybe Ian Gary, although who knows if he's ready yet, but with someone like Shavkat's like same height as Leon, nearly identical height, maybe even possibly slightly taller. His striking, Leon's striking is a bit better, but Shavkat's got an iron chin. Shavkat's grappling wrestling would have to be a bit better than Leon's, although Leon's is very good, right? And so to me, these are two guys that are warriors for the modern era. And I think Colby just didn't have that skill set. And looked a bit rusty. But Leon is a great champion. And I'll tell you what, if Leon beats Bilal and Shavkat, which he very well could, Leon could be a long reigning champion. He could because like Michael Bisping, did Bisping have one defense? If he did, that was it.
Yeah, Dan Henderson.
Right, and that was a really close call. Many Americans felt
and Dan Henderson was ranked really low in the rankings as well.
Right,
I think
exactly.
he was like ranked number 14 and got the fight or something like that.
Exactly, but Leon could be the champion for several years. But nevertheless, anyway, so yeah, well played, Leon. The Englishman beats the Mad Dog. Colby truly being like a Mad Dog maniac with the stuff he did in the set, and it is what it is. But great work on Leon Edwards. Do you think Leon can help his brother tremendously? Like I've always wondered, like you got to figure that you want to probably help your brother possibly even more than your friends. Is there anything Leon can do that can make his brother Fabian start winning these big fights?
It's difficult to say. I was actually at Bellator when Fabian fought Lyoto Machida, and he beat the brakes off Machida. He stopped him, knocked him out. And if I'm not mistaken, he lost to Johnny Eblen, right?
I think so, yeah.
Eblen's a really good fighter. If I'm not mistaken, Fabian's quite a bit younger than Edwards as well.
Than Leon, yeah.
I think give Fabian a couple more years and you'll start to see it. I think Leon is who he is now because he went through that the Usman fight. I think if Edwards lost the second Usman fight where he gets the viral head kick knockout, I don't know what happens with Leon after that. I think that moment sort of cemented it in his own mind that I belong here, and no matter how bad the fight's going, I can still pull out the fire. Yes. And to do that to someone like an Usman, I think if he had done that to another contender, it'd have been like still doubts. Doing that to Usman, I think just cemented in his mind like, no, I am the guy. I am the real deal. So I shouldn't be fearing anyone anymore. I think Fabian needs to have one of those moments. And once he does, I think he'll be like Leon, where it's just like he's hard to beat.
Yeah, and that would be great. What do you think about the signing? Finally, they say it's confirmed. MVP Michael Venom Page. Now, didn't Venom spend some time with that is it what Renegade fight team?
Yeah, I think so. I think there is some sort. I don't know. I don't want to misquote and get it wrong, but I was under the impression there's a little bit of animosity between Edwards and MVP. I know there was definitely animosity between Paul Daly and MVP. It's a great signing for the UFC. Like he's Mr. Viral when it comes to MMA. You think of how many viral moments he's had and how many just destructive moments he's had in the cage. The only reservation I have with this is he joining the UFC slightly too late in his career where he can make a real run at a title. He's fighting Kevin Holland, which I presume will be at 170. If he comes in and he's able to beat Kevin Holland convincingly, it will catapult him to a new level. In the same way we saw it catapult Michael Chandler when he beat Dan Hooker in his first fight in UFC. The thing is that 70-pound division is horrible, and there are great wrestlers in that 70-pound division. And the one thing that MVP does find difficult sometimes is dealing with the wrestlers. However, he can get a couple of great wins. We could see another contender in the welterweight division, and yeah, I'm excited. I'm really happy for him to sign. Really happy for him to sign.
Me too. How many fights do you think he would need to win to get a shot at Leon? 3 or 4, perhaps.
All right. So Kevin Holland is what, like, is he ranked number? Is he in the top 15? I feel like he is.
If not top 15, top 20, perhaps.
So let's say he comes in, he beats. I'm gonna have a quick look at the rankings. Let's say he comes in, he beats Kevin Holland, which would be a really good fight because Kevin Holland throws down with everyone and gives everyone a tough fight.
Absolutely.
So Kevin Holland is ranked number 12 at the moment.
Oh, wow.
So that would put him behind Jack Della Maddalena, Ian Gary. So if I'm MVP and I beat Kevin Holland and I want to get to a title shot as quick as possible, I think I then try and go for Stephen Wonderboy Thompson.
That would be a crazy fight.
Because Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, whether this changes or not, he's currently ranked number 6. Now, in theory,
He should be down a bit.
he should maybe go down one, but he can't. He can only go down one place because Sean Brady's ranked number 7. He's beaten Jeff Neal at 8, and he's beaten Vicente Luque at 9. So you might even have to keep Wonder Boy where he is, and that would work brilliant for MVP. So MVP, let's say, beats Kevin Holland, then he gets the Stephen Thompson fight. He would then be ranked number 6 in the division if he wins that fight. Then that keeps him away from wrestlers. But then above that, you've got Shavkat, Gilbert Burns, Colby, Bilal, and Usman.
All wrestlers. Yeah.
I would go for, if I can beat Thompson, then I would try and go for Gilbert Burns. And then if he wins that, then he could effectively get a title shot. So I'm saying 3 or 4 fights. If he gets the wins, he could do it, because Kamara and Colby aren't going to get another title shot for now anyway.
No. How do you
he
feel?
Could do it.
Yeah. How do you feel MVP matches up with like an Ian Gary?
Ooh, very interesting. So he's quicker than Ian Gary. It all depends. It's very difficult to say, because when you watch MVP, he's extremely quick. He's very light on his feet. He's got a very, very similar style to Wonder Boy, but he's just more flamboyant. Ian Gary's very much more fundamentals, and I'd like to see the fight. If I was going to call it, I'd go MVP as of right now, simply because of experience. But I wouldn't be surprised if Ian Gary could get the job done either.
Makes sense. Last question. If MVP fights Leon, who gets more love from the British fans, and then how does the fight play out?
Currently, Leon gets more love from the British fans, but it wouldn't be loads in it. It'd probably be like 60-40. It wouldn't be like crazily skewed. I think Leon just would get, but it also depends where they fight as well, actually, because they fight in London. MVP's from London. It could be a pro MVP crowd. If it's in the north, say a Manchester or a Birmingham, a Liverpool, then it would be probably Edwards.
But
I think that fight happens in the UFC regardless of Edwards being champion or not, though.
Yeah, it'd probably be the first time in England that there would be just an enormous buzz among the British fans. Probably everyone would be saying, "Who do you got, Leon or MVP?"
Yeah, I'd love to see the fight. Right now, I think Edwards would win the fight, but I'd love to see the fight.
It would be very interesting because do you think MVP would come out with his normal cockiness with Edwards, knowing how good he is?
I think he would. I think that's just MVP.
And then, do you think Leon would be smart and look to wrestle him, or would Leon just say, "Let's go ahead and see how the striking goes"?
I think Leon would do both.
And
I think that's what makes it exciting.
Yeah, that would be crazy. That might be. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that might be, if it were to happen, the biggest British. In fact, might that be the first time, I think so, that a UFC champion from England would be facing a contender from England for a title fight? Probably it would.
So, yeah. I can't think of another time. Yeah, I think it would be. Which if they'd have to do that in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would be the biggest missed opportunity if they didn't do that in the UK.
Yeah. That's probably a bit more than a year away, huh?
Yeah. Well, it depends how quick MVP wants to turn around.
That's true. It's going to be interesting to see, and I'm excited though, because he is really a great fighter, and that would be interesting. I'd love to see that. Other fights, anything you can think of about fights you're anticipating for the new year?
Yeah, after the whole melee with Strickland and Duplessis, I think that now becomes a big fight. Yes. I think Duplessis wins that quite handily, though, if I'm going to be honest. O'Malley and Cheeto. I'm looking forward to see who's going to headline 300. I think it will either be Leon or Alex Pereira that headlines 300.
Yeah, I think so. For some reason, I just keep feeling that Pereira is not going to have that much longer a run at light heavyweight than he had at middleweight. I don't know why. He's a great fighter, but Jerry, he looked good. I thought that fight was stopped a bit soon, but still he was looking good in that fight. But I think, well, he's not good. His teacher, his mentor Glover's retired, I believe, officially. Yeah. But you've still got Jan Blachowicz, who that was a a very close fight. In fact, I think I
Yeah,
thought Blachowicz won.
I did as
Uh,
well.
yeah, Jamal Hill
So,
is out there. You
do you want to
know,
hear a wild take? Do you want to
tell
hear
me.
a wild take
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
got?
yeah.
I think, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Pereira challenge someone at heavyweight.
I
I
thought
wouldn't
you.
be surprised if
Yeah,
we got Pereira versus Aspinall.
that really is possible because they say Pereira's walking around just extremely heavy. I was thinking you were going to say if Izzy comes up to face Pereira, which is
No,
also
no,
possible. You don't think
that
so again?
I don't think Izzy's, and I say this is one of Izzy's biggest fans.
Yeah.
I don't think Izzy stands a chance of beating Pereira at 205.
You know, Izzy in his last fight to me looked very drained.
Yeah, he
Like
looked.
if you notice the kicks and punches had no snap on them.
Yeah,
That's one of the things I think some people who are maybe not as expert as we are in MMA that they didn't understand. They just thought, oh well, Sean must be made of steel. His he wasn't didn't feel pain because he's such a Terminator. That's not
yeah,
true because Alex stopped him in a matter of a punch or two.
yeah,
Just Izzy looked really drawn and weakened. There was no pop on
yeah,
any of his shots, and he got hurt immediately to boot. So
yeah,
my feeling is at 6'4", maybe Izzy needs to move up to 205. Now, whether he can beat Alex or not at that weight is yet to be seen. But I do think my prediction is that Izzy has to go there next to be at 205. And best case scenario, he's just like the old Izzy because now he's got some strength and he's got hydration and
mm,
but who knows? But yeah, it's possible. I don't know what it is. Like all respect to Alex Pereira, he seems like a really decent guy. I've met several.
yeah,
I've trained with several Brazilian fighters, and very good, tough, strong guys, strong-minded people. But for whatever reason, I just don't know. I'm not feeling from the beginning. I wasn't feeling he would have a long reign at middleweight, which he didn't. I didn't think he would win at light heavyweight, but I also thought he would have to earn his way there, winning several fights, which he didn't. And then he got there, and then he got a stoppage all over another fighter that I thought was premature. So I'm not trying to sound like a hater, but I don't know. I'm having a feeling someone beats this guy fairly soon. I could be wrong though. He's a strong guy and a good fighter
yeah.
and he's got his ground. He's got the takedown defense better and better. I don't think he can do much when he's on the ground, but he's learning, and I don't know. Jamal Hill against him would be an interesting matchup. I've interviewed Jamal several times. That would definitely be an exciting matchup.
Yeah,
I think
I
because
agree. I agree.
yeah,
I like Jamal. Jamal again seems to be another one of these fights that really splits opinion. I think he's just really confident. I don't think he sort of downplays what Alex Pereira does, but I think he's just confident in his own ability. I think he has a very good chance against Pereira. The
yeah.
thing is, Pereira's always got that equalizer. It seems he just seems to have that KO punch. I tell you, I know it's not going to be a fight that's made, but a fight I'd find really fun to watch would be Pereira versus Khalil Roundtree.
Yeah, Khalil's looking really good lately. He's in that mix, and you know, Megamed Ankalaev, even though people
Yeah,
are doubting him, but he still hasn't been beaten. He's had a couple of draws, but he hasn't been beaten. He's in there. He's going to be really motivated. So there's going to be a lot of excitement in that
he's
weight
fighting in
division.
the new year, isn't he, against Walker?
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting. And then Aspinall. Who is there for Aspinall other than John Jones? Here's my question: does John Jones agree to fight Aspinall, or does he retire?
No, I think he retires. And there's a narrative going around that John Jones is frightened of Aspinall. He's not frightened of Aspinall, and
No.
I'm saying that as a Brit who's an Aspinall fan. He's
Yeah.
not frightened of Aspinall, but I do think Jones has always been very cerebral in his thinking towards how he wants to be perceived by MMA fans. At the moment, I think it's without an argument that he's the greatest light heavyweight of all time. He can't go down as the greatest heavyweight of all time simply because he's not going to have enough fights in the division. However, if you're going to want to be called the greatest MMA fighter of all time, then you go after someone who is perceived to be the greatest in that division. Him being Aspinall will feel great for the moment and for a few months afterwards. But legacy wise, there will always be people who go, oh, well, Aspinall was young and you didn't fight him in his prime. if he beats Stipe, even though us as MMA fans who closely follow it will go, well, Stipe hasn't fought in years. The last time he fought, he got flatlined by Francis, and he's not in his prime. But the books will read the greatest heavyweight in the UFC lost to the greatest light heavyweight. The light heavyweight went up, beat Cyril Gane, and then beat the GOAT of the MMA heavyweights. In John's mind, he will then have his argument to say, I'm the GOAT, and no one can really argue with it on paper. And I think that's the way Jones looks at it. It's a legacy fight for him. In terms of the actual fight itself, love Stipe. There is no way, I don't think anyone can justify it as to why Stipe gets the next title shot, especially when you have an interim champion. But at the same time, why should Tom wait around? They should have just made it for the main belt, or just not made it an interim title shot. So it's
agree.
A bit silly what the UFC did there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think Aspinall presents a great challenge to John Jones, especially since it's at heavyweight. Jones is big, he's heavy, but it's not naturally that heavy. He's learning to walk around at this weight for only the last 2 years, and only fight at this weight for the last 1 year, and only have one fight. It's a really, really good fight because John prides himself on being more confident and more composed in there, because knowing how good his skill set is. Aspinall is quite composed and confident in there, knowing his skill set. They're about the same height, but Aspinall is a naturally big, thick guy.
Yeah,
John Jones
got a massive reach advantage over Aspinall, though.
That is true too, but then Aspinall's like 6 years younger, I think, which gives him the advantage there. I will say this: if Jones comes back and beats Aspinall, yes, some people will say Aspinall was young and not that experienced, but I still think it would be a tremendous accomplishment. And my feeling is, even if Jones just comes back and beats Aspinall, that would be enough to retire on and say, listen, Aspinall beats Sergey. Between Sergey and Aspinall, they beat all the rest of the contenders. What do you want me to do here? I've done it, right? But to me, if he avoids Aspinall, it's going to stick in a lot of people's minds.
Yeah.
A lot of people are going to say, yeah, I know what you did. You got your ass out of there before you faced the new guy, before you faced the kid. You literally didn't have the courage to face the kid. And so...
And Francis, it looks like he kind of avoided Francis as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. So now if he could come back and beat both of them, that I think would cement the legacy.
That cements everything.
Absolutely. Although it seems like it would be quite difficult to arrange that against Francis. And certainly in a boxing match, now we know that Francis would absolutely annihilate John Jones. And, and I don't know about MMA, but what would you think about an MMA fight with really quickly with if Francis fought Aspinall? That would be quite interesting, wouldn't it?
I think it's difficult to say because he's going to be quicker than Francis, but I also think Francis is a much better boxer than Pavlovich. But he's also got a way better chin than Pavlovich as well, I believe.
Yes.
That for me is a real 50-50 fight.
Yeah, because if Aspinall stays on his feet more than just a minute, he's possibly in trouble.
Yeah, Francis, but he's way better on the ground than Francis.
Yes, he is. Yeah, and so Francis might need to bring Usman back into his corner to help with that wrestling takedown defense. That would be super exciting. I hope one day that happens. I think that, that I know that both Francis and John are in their mid-30s, and Tom, I think, just turned 30. So, I'm sure Tom is down for both of them, without a doubt. I think that Francis might be down for both of them if the money was right, but we don't know if John is down for either or either of them. Probably not. No. But still, it'd be great. But yeah, well, I know you better get to sleep over there in England. But great win for the British. Was there more than 2 Brits on the card, or maybe the undercard? Or I know Casey O'Neill.
You had Casey O'Neill, Paddy Pimblett, Leon Edwards. I think that might be it.
Was Boudet? Boudet wasn't a Brit, was he?
No,
he was from Slovakia. Yeah, so only a couple of British, and then you saw Meatball Molly in the audience there,
supporting Paddy.
Love to see her back in action. But yeah, Paddy looks legit, And yeah, good show. Well played to the English. Always happy to see my English brothers look good. Leon Edwards, the best fighter, one of the best in the world, if not the best as of now. And
Yeah.
yeah, looking forward to seeing what happens and hoping that things continue to get MMA continues to get more popular in England in the near future. And I know that Bellator PFL is going to be having an event in Belfast
Yeah.
in a couple months, so that would be interesting. How long of a drive would it? Can you drive to Belfast from where you
You
are in England?
can, but it'd be better to get you better probably to get plane over there. It wouldn't be a long plane journey.
Yeah, so it's a 3 hour plane ride or something.
No, probably like maybe less than an hour.
Oh wow, there you go.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
maybe you might be able to, if things break right, perhaps we can get some things going where we can
that
have
would be
Callum
brilliant.
covering,
Yeah,
the Bellator PFL event in Belfast for MMA from London
to LA.
to LA. That would be awesome. Well, I'll tell you, since I opened Callum, I'll let you close it, and I'll just say you guys know where to find me at Colin Crandall 33, mostly on Twitter, taking a bit of a hiatus, getting some work done during the holiday season here, but this is my mainstay here. Callum, let people know where to find you.
Indeed, indeed. You can find me at Callum Sanderson on all social media platforms. And most important, you can find me here on Hannibal TV. Shout out to Hannibal TV. Please do subscribe, like the video as well. It's been a great 2023, Colin. And I have to say from the bottom of my heart, it's been brilliant work with you. I've learned so much from you. So thank you so much for making this happen. And hopefully we have a fruitful 2024 as well.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Callum. Always great working with you, man. I enjoy chatting with you a lot.
Bless you,
I'm
man.
honored, privileged to call you a friend, and you are one of the
Indeed.
great minds in MMA and one of the great people here involved in it. So really appreciate you. Yeah, look forward to it. And you know what? Everyone tune in. No events next week, so we're
Yeah.
off, and then we should come back in the new year. We'll look forward to seeing you. I'll let you wrap it up, Callum.
Indeed, indeed. Everyone, smash that like button. Have a phenomenal Christmas.